Attend the 50th G7 summit. This marks the Prime Minister's first international trip since assuming office for a third term. He is accompanied by a high-level delegation underscoring the significance of this summit for India's diplomatic and economic engagements on the global stage. During the G7 summit, the Prime Minister will participate in an outreach session focusing on critical issues such as artificial intelligence, energy and Africa. Well, India is expected to play a significant role in the G7 summit with a strong focus on security issues, and this also marks India's 11th participation in the summit and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 5th consecutive attendance. The G7 summit is taking place during a very critical period amidst the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, as well as the significant political events in the G7 countries. Listen in to the former Italian Sherpa for G8 and G20 ambassador for more insights.
As far as for India, well, India is a prominent country. It's among the most important countries of the world. It's a huge democracy, so everybody counts on India as a stabilizing factor. You have an important position in the global south. You are pledging towards a multipolar world. You don't want to substitute other orders, India-centric orders, to other orders in international community. You want countries to cooperate together, and we think that this is the right approach, and we highly value what you are doing on the international scene.
Now, there are a lot of key bilaterals that have been lined up for the day. The Prime Minister's itinerary has been accessed. The Prime Minister will be meeting the French President Emmanuel Macron at 2:45 p.m. Bilateral meeting is also expected with Rishi Sunak, the UK Prime Minister, at 3 p.m. The first international visit after the Prime Minister has started his third term. He is in southern Italy to attend the outreach session of the G7 summit and will be holding bilateral talks on a wide range of issues with the world leaders. The Prime Minister arrived in Italy to participate in the summit, and he is visiting Italy with a high-level committee with a lot of leaders with him. So let's get you the details of what is going to happen and the packed day that the Prime Minister has. At 10:45 to 11:10 is a bilateral meeting with President Emmanuel Macron in France, which is, of course, the Indian time of 2:15 to 2:40. That's when it is scheduled. The bilateral meeting is also scheduled with Prime Minister of UK, Rishi Sunak. That is expected to be at 2:40 till 3 p.m. Indian time. He will be arriving at the G7 summit venue at about 5 p.m. Indian time. And
Namaste. The Prime Minister of India has arrived at Brindisi Airport in Italy to participate in the G7 summit. Tomorrow is a packed day for him. We have several bilateral meetings with world leaders lined up. He'll also be addressing the outreach session of the G7 summit. Stay tuned with the Ministry of External Affairs, social media handles and digital medium to get an update on the visit.
My colleague Rishabh joins us on the broadcast with the schedule of the Prime Minister for the day. So a lot of bilaterals expected. Rishabh, it's going to be very, very significant. A welcome photo with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also expected at about 5:15 p.m. Take us through the packed schedule of the Prime Minister. It's one day, but in the 24 hours, a lot of bilaterals, a lot of meetings that have been packed up.
Well, definitely. If we see it's a packed day, and if we talk about Indian Standard Time, around 2:15, you'll have the first bilateral of the day. That will be with President Emmanuel Macron of France. Then there will be a meeting with Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, around 2:40 p.m. India time. Then there are other bilaterals as well, which has not been as of now announced that, but there are bilaterals as well. Then there will be Prime Minister will arrive around 5 p.m. Indian time at the venue of the G7 summit, where first, there will be a welcome photo with the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, and then there is a session on the outreach session that India is participating. This will be talking about Indo-Pacific, Africa, Global South, artificial intelligence, and these are the issues that will be discussed. Prime Minister will be putting forward India's opinion, India's stand on these issues as well. Then there is a family photo which has all the leaders, the member nations of G7, as well as the invited members, which include India, Mauritius, and other countries, United Nations, as well as the IMF and European Union. Then you will have a bilateral meeting with Germany that is scheduled around 9:20 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Then we have a final bilateral. There will be also with Prime Minister Kishida of Japan, as well as Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni of Italy. There's also a bilateral schedule with the Pope Francis in the evening itself. That will be between 10 to 11 p.m. this evening, and then there's an informal dinner, post which Prime Minister will leave for India. The one-day visit to Italy will commence with the informal dinner, but very, very significant visit. If we talk about these bilaterals, with France, we have been dealing in defense, and the Rafale Marine is something that India and France have been discussing at length, and India is expecting that India gets those Rafale Marine as soon as possible. The negotiations are still on. With Germany, remember, India and Germany have been talking about critical technology for last 2 years, and that is something that is India very much interested in, and so is Germany. Apart from that, Italy being the host nation, will be discussing. India has uplifted its relationship with Italy to a strategic partnership. That is something that will definitely be discussed. Having said that, with France also, Indo-Pacific is something that will definitely be interesting to see what the leaders discuss, given the expansionist agenda that China is moving ahead with. India-Japan bilateral becomes very, very significant. Remember, both India and Japan are part of Quad as well.
Okay, all right. Rishabh, will continue coming back to you through the day for those updates. A lot expected in these bilaterals as well. In fact, the Prime Minister also made a statement highlighting the significance of this outreach session. He said that he will be delving into issues of critical importance for the Global South, adding that the discussions will focus on the critical issues for the Global South, ensuring that the voices and concerns of these regions are heard on the global stage. This alignment between the G20 and the G7 summits aim to foster the collaborative solutions and enhance the impact of international efforts. During his visit to Italy for the G7 summit, the Prime Minister's agenda also includes significant meetings with the Pope Francis as well, as confirmed by the Vatican. This rare meeting with the Pope is set to take place on the sidelines of the summit.